Hey, Forge fans, it's the Forge Audio Network. I'm Anthony Urcioli. This is the match in review. Forge FC. Halifax won the final from Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton on a Saturday afternoon. Forge, I got to tell you, from start to finish, they played well. They played their game. Forge did what they wanted to for the most part. The flow was there. The ball possession was there. The control was there. What wasn't there is that clinical finish. That final touch was just lacking in this one. And sometimes you can chalk that up to it being early in a season. You know, preseason isn't quite what it is in some other leagues. You don't really get the kind of time that other leagues do in terms of just being able to refine things before the season starts a lot of times. And we've seen this from Forge over the years. Slow starts to a year. It takes them some time for various reasons. I mean, you have a lot of talent packed into one roster. Not everyone can play. Sometimes just that rhythm isn't quite there. But the rhythm was there today. I mean, Forge was the better club. And really, Halifax scored their goal after really not doing much. Early in the match, Noah Jensen had a chance that went off the crossbar. Forge had a lot of chances, actually. Some miscues from the Halifax keeper. And it was Jan Filion in goal for Halifax. And he got a little aggressive, got out of his net. Forge had some chances there with some scrambles, and just that final touch wasn't there. Unlucky with the bar on the Noah Jensen chance. Forge came out with a bit of a different lineup. A little different than what we've been used to, right? Jordan Hamilton started in that striker position. They're still trying to get him going. He did score in the season opener, but he's a guy that's going to be relied on heavily for Forge this season, and they're trying to get him going. Kwesi Poku started on the left wing, David Chouanier on the right wing, and the midfield, Noah Jensen, Abu Sissoko, and Alessandro Hojab-Rapport. Malik, his first ever start with Forge at left back. So a guy that's mostly been counted on as a center back moved as a left back. So Malik started there, and then it was Garvin Matusala and Mandrakar James playing in the center of that defense, Razard Rama on the right side. So a bit of a different look on the left side with Poku and Malik. And ultimately, you know, it was that right side with Chouanier, the way he, Sissoko, and Rama hooked up, and sometimes Jensen when he switched, they had a lot going there. The triangles were there, the movement was there. Again, it just lacked. It lacked that final touch, that clinical touch just wasn't quite there for Forge FC in this one. So let's take you through the scoring summary. Halifax opened the scoring first, 42nd minute. Farron making it 1-0. Rampersad with the assist. And all of a sudden, Forge goes into the locker room down after a pretty good first half. They're trailing going into the final 45. Wanderers opened the second half with a yellow card. It was Calgary. They made a couple of switches. Halifax did what they do. They sit back, they defend, they try to beat you on the counter. And they weren't all that dangerous on the counter. Certainly some opportunities. I mean, these are professional soccer clubs. Of course, there are going to be some opportunities, but nothing sustained for Halifax. It was really just Forge trying to break down that low block that Halifax was throwing at them. Forge would make 4 changes. Pacius came on, Borges came on, Ashton Yodi Janssen came on, Campbell came on in 2 separate substitutions. Ashton Morgan also came on. So Forge using their lineup. 5 players came on between the 64th and the 80th minute. And then finally, in the 89th minute, Woobens Pacius. Now, the beauty of this goal is the few touches that happened before the finishing product. Mandrakar James. We're going to talk about him a lot. In fact, we're going to be joined momentarily by Benedict Rhodes, CPL analyst. He was here at Tim Hortons Field watching the match, as was I, but he'll offer his perspective as well. And I'm positive we're going to talk about Mandrakar James. He, as a center back, he does his job. We know what he can bring defensively, but it's what he can add to the attack that I think is what separates himself from a lot of defenders in this league. Mandrikar James forcing the issue, pushes the ball into the area, makes a run, gets past hit the defender, and then delivers diagonally back into the top of the area. And Sissoko lets one rip. Pasillas, right place, right time, off his body and in. And it was your tying goal. And again, it was all started because Mandrikar James jumped in and forced the issue and forced Halifax to defend. Now they're on their heels. Now they can't account for all the bodies. So when you have a center back joining the attack, it creates, you start outnumbering the opposition. And it led to Forge's tying goal, 89th minute. So Forge salvages a point. They start their domestic campaign with a pair of draws, both at home. And now they hit the road for a match on Sunday against Pacific. Before we get there, though, and before we get to Benedict Rhodes, let's throw it down. Let's hear from Forge FC head coach and technical director, Bobby Smirniotis.
Yeah, we need to be a little bit more clinical in that final third. You know, we've got a lot of the ball. We've got a lot of opportunities. It's not just possession to possess. We've gotten in behind them in a lot of situations. We're in the final third. We're in their penalty box. You got to be clinical. And you know, I give credit to the guys. We kept on going, and you know that's where the goal comes from. It comes from all the processes of our play. You know, we knew that they'd want to look at some counter-attacking opportunities or quick switches of play. We controlled that for the most part, but you know, they got us on one time in the first half. And I think when a team like them or any team gets one goal, it gives them the comfort of trying to hold on from there. So, you know, we just got to be a little bit more clinical in that final third. Saying that, and I think it was the third minute of the game, Noah Jensen's hit the crossbar. You know, those moments change a lot in these types of matches. Yeah, first and foremost, it's something I tend to do over the years. If you look at the first 4 or 5 games of the season, there's usually a lot of rotation in the squad. I know what's important is the end result, and the end result is 28 games. Plus whatever in the past it's been playoffs. So you have to make sure that you're engaging your players. That's important. You know, I think we've seen in this first week a lot of injuries around the league, and it's important to have your players engaged so that they're prepared to step up. So there's been a healthy rotation in the squad, and I think that will continue over these first few games as we kind of get to the guys that need to get the business done. But of course, when you have quality players, that always helps in making your life easier. From having to make substitutions, it makes your life a little bit more difficult when you have to put a starting 11 on the field.
Yeah, and you heard Bobby talk about, you know, the fact that they just need to be more clinical, and I mean, how do you get there? Because it's not something, you know, in training. You know, these are quality players. They know what they need to do. They know how to finish. They know how to score goals. But when it's lacking in a match, it's hard to simulate these matches in training. It just is. Woobens Pasillas at the podium, the goal scorer, the reason that Forge, a big reason why Forge FC was able to salvage a point, and I'm sure Pasillas will address the finish as well. Here's Woobs.
Of course, it's important for striker to have that confidence, like you said. We all know that what the striker need to do is score goals. So when they have that opportunities to score goals, it's always good for us. So I'm really grateful for that. Of course, yeah, it's really good. I think we are really lucky to have that depth in our team. We know that anyone that's gonna start the game is a good player, and we know that if we need freshness during the game, we have a lot of players that can come and do the job too. So it's a good thing for us, an advantage for us. So I think it's really good for us.
So Pasillas now, you could see kind of the range in his game. He scores one of the most perfect PKs you'll ever see against Laval in his Canadian Championship match on Tuesday. A few days later, he scores because he's just in the right place at the right time. And listen, as a striker, it's not always about that perfect finish, that clinical finish. Sometimes it's just about being in the right place. It's about making your runs and being in the right position and anticipating where that ball is going to be. End of the day, he's on the scoreboard, and that's going to help his confidence going forward. Let's now bring in our CPL analyst, Benedict Rhodes. Benedict, it was an interesting match because I really, you know, Forge got the start they wanted, certainly some flashes. They played the way they wanted to. That final touch, that clinical finish was just, it was absent. And it almost cost them all 3 points. They were able to salvage one, but just they couldn't quite get that final touch.
Yeah, this sport can be a weird one sometimes. In the first half, there was I think about 10 or 15 minute stretch where they had every single opportunity. Was the ball was almost exclusive in Halifax's half of the pitch, and they just couldn't find that final finish. Then 89th minute, it seems like they're going to lose 1-0. They score on a wild deflection after a save from the Halifax goalkeeper. So this sport can be a weird one, but I think ultimately I think Forge did deserve 1 point, and that's what they got.
Yeah, and we were both at the press conference, and we both spoke to Bobby, and we talked to Woobin Spasias, and both spoke about the importance of strikers just getting on the board, just getting goals under their belt. Woobin scores just one of a perfect PK in his last match against Laval, and in this one he gets kind of lucky, but he was in the right place. Ball goes off of him. It's a deflection, and it's a goal. For a guy like him, especially with this Forge club, with the amount of depth they have up front, you have to think just getting on the board in a league match, especially, is big for Woobin. It's a guy who's going to be counted on this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've seen that so far this season from Ford. Jordan Hamilton took the penalty last week. Uber took a penalty, scored again today. It's important to get these guys going, and so Bobby Sminero sort of said after the game, it doesn't really matter how they go in, I guess, as long as they do go in. And he said Ruben's a little bit lucky today, but it took a striker's instinct to be in that right position at the right time. And I do think he deserved a goal because him and Terrence Campbell as well, fantastic off the bench, and we're making a lot of opportunities, and did end up getting one in the back of the net in the end.
Yeah, Campbell was very noticeable, and he didn't play a ton of minutes, but as soon as he stepped on the field, especially in the area, he was dangerous every time he touched the ball. Again, there are only so many spots. There's talent. I mean, any one of these strikers could start for any club in this league. So it's a good problem to have, but also decisions need to be made. And Forge now with a little bit of a longer week. Do you see them going with this kind of strategy of, we're going to go with kind of, we think, what works before the match, but we're going to try to get all of our strikers a touch at some point and get them some minutes? Do you think this is kind of the formula Forge will go with going forward?
Yeah, I think so. I expect it to be sort of like a platoon, if you will, between the best forwards. I think Jordan Hamilton and Ubis Pacias both have the quality where you don't want to take them off the pitch, but you also can't start both of them most likely. Let's say maybe Ubin's on one of the wings, but that's not his best position. So I do think we'll see them interchange back and forth between the two of them all season long. And I guess if one of them gets red hot, I would expect to see them start the bulk of matches. But so far through these first few games of the season, I do expect them to kind of go back and forth until one of them really takes off.
Mandrakar James was very noticeable in this one, involved in all kinds of stuff, and he, it's not his primary job, but he has already shown in only a few games that when he gets involved offensively, I mean, the things that he can do and the way he can kind of force the issue, his let's call it determination, is what led to Forge's goal, and he just forced the issue inside the area. It really is an X factor to have a center back that can contribute and push the offense like James can.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's shown an ability to play those long passes from the back line, and also when he's in the box, like you mentioned, he has that experience and that composure to be able to maybe take a touch and fire a shot off where some players might try to rush it. I think that was evident on the goal, and just generally when he's on the ball, he seems comfortable, he seems calm. He knows he can trust his teammates and they can trust him. So when you play like that, it's always going to be a positive thing, and we've seen that before with Forge and with their players. And James is just the latest on a long line, I guess, of strong center backs.
Yeah, and he's a guy who, he's new to the club, but he knows he's played with a lot of these guys before. He knows Coach Bobby, he knows his system, so he's not new in that sense. But even in this match, when things got kind of heated late, after the match ended, both clubs were kind of in each other's faces. Things got a little bit testy. James was at the center of it, defending his teammates. There's kind of that leadership there that he brings. And Forge, they have a guy like Malik, right? He does have a pro year under his belt, but he's still a young player. And a guy like James to kind of force the issue and kind of take things over. And there's a leadership quality there that, maybe we didn't, Forge fans who weren't as familiar with him didn't know what to expect. but he brings something, just something. I don't know if it's a grit. There's a commanding presence about him. Does that make sense?
I think so. Like he's played in Europe for the best part of a decade, and I think and played for the national team. And I think when you have those two things on your resume, similar to an Ashton Morgan as well at left back, you have
Right.
these veteran leaders and people who command a presence, like you said, and people listen to them. I think also an important thing is he's not the kind of flashy player who wants to be the star of the show. He knows every player has a position and every player has a role to play, and he plays his well, and he brings the best out of the players around him as well. And you can't really ask for much more than that out of a center back.
Yeah. He's been as advertised, I guess you could say. Noah Jensen did not score today, so it's his first match without a goal. He did get the start, and he got very close. He hit a crossbar early. Bobby Smirniotis kind of touched on that if that goes in, it changes the game, and that's just the way the sport works. But again, we're 3 matches in, and Noah, again, one of the more noticeable players on the field. I think it's safe to say that we can stop referring to Noah Jensen as kind of this, young, green, whatever, inexperienced player. He game in, game out. There's a presence about him. I mean, you have no choice but to notice him. He's been that good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you're missing a player like Kyle Becker, for example, having a player who can slot into the team pretty much seamlessly and play that role very, very well, that's a huge plus for Forge. And to have someone like Jensen who can, he's started 3 games in a row. He can run for days. He does need a bit of a break. He can't start every game, of course, and can't play every minute of every game. But someone who can reliably come in and out of the team like that is crucial for any team, especially when you're playing at the level that he has these first few games of the season.
All right, Benedict Rhodes, thanks so much for joining. And we're both in the stadium, so maybe we'll cross paths at some point before we leave. But thanks again.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Your final, again, from Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton, 1-1, Forge, Halifax. And the Hammers now hit the road after a pair of home matches to start their domestic campaign. And they will play their rivals out west, Pacific FC. Eastern time, that match starts at 8 o'clock. That's on Sunday. Make sure you tune in. And make sure you keep it locked to the Forge Audio Network, your official home of the reigning, defending, undisputed Canadian Premier League champions, Forge FC. All right, we'll talk to you soon.